Hey you guys, it's Andrew. So today I'm going to talk about kind of two different things, but they're really relevant. So half of this video is going to be about how I came out when I came out as gay, and the other half is going to be how I came out when I came out as transgender. So if you don't want to hear about one or the other, I'm telling you the gay one comes first and then the transgender one because that's the way it happened in my life. So yeah, let's get to it. I guess we'll start with my friends. So whenever I found out I was gay, it was a longer process than that, basically, okay, whenever I found out I liked girls, it was really easy for me because the main reason how I found out was because of my best friend at the time, Hannah. Well, she's still my best friend. But Hannah, she's in one of my other videos. Feels. But I found out she was bisexual and I was like, whoa, urges, why, confusion, don't know. But anyway, so it was really easy coming out to my friends because all of my friends turned out to be bisexual, except for one, which she's not my friend anymore. But she was really cool about it. So my friends were really, really easy because they kind of were with me through it and they've been through it. So yeah, family-wise, first person I told was my sister. I actually had told her a year and a half before I told my mom. And I had just figured it out that night, and it was about 11 o'clock, and I texted her. I was like, hey, I really need to tell you something, but I don't want you to see me any differently. And she was like, well, what is it? I was like, I'm gay. And she was really confused because I had been dating this boy for like 2 years. But anyway, so I called and I talked to her, and she was okay. I went through denial after that, and so through my denial, I did date a couple of boys. Happens, whatever. But so then, about a year and a half later, maybe even 2 years later, I decided, I knew, like, from that point on, I knew it was pretty much only going to be girls. I mean, if there was a guy, then cool, but the chances of that are, like, 0, so, yeah. So what happened was, I ended up texting my mom to tell her, which I know sounds cowardly, but the story is, I was ready for it. I was like, okay, I'm going to go shower because this is going to be a lot of crying and hugging and I don't want to smell bad. So I went and I was like, going to shower and I'm going to get out and I'm going to tell her. So I showered and I was all pumped up. I had my speech ready. I'm sure as a lot of people that come out know what I'm talking about. You kind of develop a speech a million times in your head until you feel like that's the right one for you. So I had my speech ready and everything. And I was going to go tell her, and I got out of the shower, and she wasn't there. And I was like, where the heck are you? And so I called my mom. I was like, hey, where are you? And she was like, oh, I'm out shopping. I'll be back in a little bit. And so a little bit with my mom means like 2 hours. And so I was like, okay, just whatever. And she's like, well, is everything okay? I was like, yeah, everything's fine. So I hung up the phone with her, and I was sitting there anxious, and I started to feel really nauseous. And honestly, the way I see coming out, it's kind of like taking a shit. Like, when you gotta go, you gotta go. When you want to come out, whenever it is time to come out, you are going to come out. So I ended up texting her because she wasn't there, and I just said, look, Mom, and I did my whole speech, and then I was like, I'm gay. And she texted me back, she was like, oh, cool, okay, we can talk about this more whenever I get home. And honestly, it flew over her head. She didn't even care. I ended up having her tell my dad just because I felt too awkward too. I was like, I knew my dad's stand on it. I knew that he didn't care. He had told me multiple times, if one of his kids was gay, and they told him, he'd just be like, okay, cool. It'd be like if you told him what you had for lunch, like, alright. He really doesn't care, but I did want him to know, so I just had my mom kind of clue him in. As for the rest of my family, my sister had already known, and then my brother, my little brother, oh, that kid is so funny. I told him, he kind of figured it out a long time ago, a really long time ago, but he finally just asked me, after he had asked me a million times before, but I always denied it, or I got to a point where I'd be like, I don't know, kind of leaving hints, but he asked me one time, he was like, wait, you gay? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, wait, are you you really are? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I knew it. And he got all excited, and he was like, we both like boobs, and yeah. So that was pretty much my little brother. My older brother didn't find out until a year or so after that. He came down because he was in the military. He was an Army Ranger. So he came down to visit us, and he was talking to me about something about boyfriends. I was like, no, I'm gay. And he was like, wait, really? And I was like, yeah. He was like, out of all people, I assumed that it would be my other sister, you know? I never expected you. You had boyfriends and everything. Like, really? And I was like, yeah. He was like, that is awesome. And he loved it. And he jokes about it all the time, or at least he did. And it was cool. So basically, that was it. My whole family was really cool. All of my friends were really cool. I can't really say I lost any friends. I mean, I did, but not really. So when I say I lost friends, it was just kind of things really weren't the same, and we didn't really talk. But those were the friends that I just had a class with that I would talk to during class, and then the next year when I had a class with them, it's kind of awkward. But hey, man, whatever. So other than that, pretty much everybody took it really, really well. There weren't very many questions. If they would be the stereotypical, like, but, well, what made you decide this? How did you think that? How did you find out? All those lovely questions that a lot of people get, I'm sure. So that was my coming out as gay. Yeah, pretty much to the extent of it. That was kind of fast because I don't want this video to be really long. So me coming out as transgender. The absolute first person that I kind of told, I didn't really tell them, was my ex-girlfriend, and she was kind of figuring things out with me. At that point, I didn't think I was transgender. I just thought that I was a really, 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 really big dyke. Or if you get offended by that word, butch girl, whatever you want to call it. I just thought I was a very masculine woman. So I was figuring things out, and that was the time when I was binding and I was doing all that good stuff. But she kind of knew, but not really. So the first person that I actually told was, I'm pretty sure it was my friend Maddie, and I've mentioned her in a different video. But she was really awesome about it, and she just thought it was really cool, and she's like, I'm excited to see you transition. She would send me pictures of people that had been on testosterone and been like, hey, this is gonna happen for you. That's so awesome. And then I told a couple of other people. Funniest thing happened. My ex, not the same one, but a different one that I hadn't dated for very long, so we're still pretty cool. He came out to me as transgender 2 weeks after I came out to my mom. And so he was like, hey, I just want to let you know I'm transgender. I was like, me too, no way. And so we're pretty cool. Came out to a couple of different people. They were all really accepting about it. I only got one negative comment from somebody, and I don't know. It kind of went over my head. I don't really care. But with my mom, what happened was I think she kind of suspected it because I started showing her transgender videos and such, and I would be like, oh, this is really cool. And she'd look at me and be like, you're not transgender. And I ended up telling her, hey, I think I really need to go to therapy. And she looked like she was about to cry, and she was like, is it because you think that you're transgender? And I was like, no, even though that was really the reason, but I could tell she didn't really want to hear that. So of course I didn't tell her, because I don't want to be a bad son like that. So I told her, no, it's just because I have a lot of issues because of me being gay and all this stuff. She was like, oh, okay, well, I think that's a good idea. And we started looking up things, and then a couple of days later, I just couldn't take it anymore. I absolutely couldn't, and I sat her down, and I was like, Mom, I really need to talk to you. And I started crying because, I knew, not really her view, but that was the absolute last thing. Well, not the last, but something she didn't want me to say to her. So I was like, I don't know what's going on because I feel like a boy. She was like, what? And, we had like a really long conversation about it, but it ended up on a really good note, and she was saying it was a good idea for me to go to gender therapy. So I did that. But yeah, my mom she was just really shocked, and she went through a part where she was mourning because she felt like she lost her daughter, instead of seeing it as not that way. I think she still kind of is a little bit. It's sad, but that's a really common thing. But so ultimately, she said she loved me. She said she didn't care. It was just something that was going to be hard for her, which is understandable. My dad, so I had gone to gender therapy, and I talked to my gender therapist about how I was scared to tell my dad, because with my dad, it's very black and white. So it would be either he would be 110% on board and be like, okay, or he would look at me and be like, this is a phase, like, I can't, and, would not be with it, would let me, make my decision on it, but would just not be understanding. And so I went into his office, and I was, like, really shaking, and I was like, hey, can you talk? And he was like, yeah, go ahead, come on in. And I sat down on the floor, which then he knows is going to be a long talk because I'm sitting down. But I looked at him, and I was like, I really need to say something. Now, before you say anything, let me say what I have to say. This is something that I need to say to you. You don't have to like it, but I ask that you respect it. And he looked kind of concerned, like he didn't really know what was going on. And I was like, I am transgender. And I explained a bunch of things to him. And at one point, I started really shaking because I was scared. And it was the sweetest thing, because he went down, he grabbed my hand, and he was like, I admire you so much for being so strong and for not ignoring this part of your life, for going, hey, this is something that I feel like this, and I'm going to try it. And if it stays that way, that is fantastic. But, I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work out, I can always try something else. He wasn't trying to, hint at me that it was a phase or anything. He was just saying he was proud of me for that, which really meant a lot. He even mentioned that as soon as I turned 18, we could go down and legally change my name, which I've decided I'm going to do during the summer, but he was just unbelievably awesome about it. The best person that I've come out to. He had questions about transgender people, not even about me, which just almost never happens. People are always like, well, how did you know? What made you think that? He was just like, so do I say, this is my daughter and my daughter's a boy, or because, you're biologically, and then I explained to him the difference between sex and gender and everything, and he was just so awesome about it. My other siblings, I was in a really sensitive state at the time, and so if they had something negative to say, I couldn't be around to hear it. So I went and spent the night at a friend's house, and my parents told my siblings. So to this day, I don't know, and probably will never know what they had to say. And honestly, I don't really want to know. But yeah, it was kind of sad because they started treating me a little bit differently. Not so much my little brother, because he's very black and white like my dad. Like, oh, okay, it's going to be this way? Alright, that's cool. Whatever. The only question he had for me was my sexuality, which made sense. He was asking if I was straight or not. My brother is accepting of me, but I don't think he's very accepting of my choices, which that's his thing. It's whatever. We still have a pretty good relationship. It's not the way it used to be, but that's understandable too. Things are still a little weird with my sister. I think she just feels like she lost a sister, but they're getting a lot better. So I feel like coming out as transgender, the difference is it takes a lot more time because it's not so black and white, instead of just being like, oh, well, they're going to be with this person now instead of this person. It's, oh, they're a whole different person, and, it's like you have to get used to a different name and different pronouns, and the idea of them looking different, just, it's a lot more to take in. And also I feel like it's a big difference because transgender people aren't really known because you can't usually spot them out. If someone's taking testosterone and everything, you wouldn't be able to walk up to somebody transgender and say, oh, I totally knew that that was a female, because they don't look like it. Whereas someone gay, you can clearly see two women or two men holding hands, or, displaying affection, things like that. It's a lot easier. So I feel like that's why not many people are educated, and I feel like that's why so many people are scared of it, is because they don't know how to take it. They don't really know what it is. They're just kind of confused. Like, what? Because no one really hears about it until you know somebody transgender, or you study it, or you are yourself. Side note, I also told, well, I didn't tell, but my cousin messaged me the sweetest thing, and I'm actually going to read it because it just made me so happy, and I just want to show you. She found out through my YouTube videos, and I think that my aunt told her too, because my mom and my aunt are best friends, whatever. I just want to let you know that your videos help me understand what you're going through. Like, when I first heard that you were going to be transgender, I felt like I had a sword stabbing me through the stomach and a weird feeling inside my body. But then I thought about it, and I saw your recent videos. That made me think, if he's happy, then I'm happy. And I should be happy for my cousin and give him the loving prayers and thoughts. So she was really, really, really sweet about it, which I appreciate. Other than that, that's about it. I haven't come out to very many people, but everybody's been pretty accepting, which is really nice. So, yeah, those are my coming out stories. That's how I did it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for everybody. I'm really fortunate, and I have such an accepting group of people surrounding me and loving me. I'm actually making a video about my suggestions of coming out. So, yeah, go watch that if you want to know how I suggest for you. Yeah, that's about it. That's about some of the differences and how I came out as gay and how I came out as transgender and everything. I hope that everybody's having a good week. I know I'm having a pretty good week, and I'll see y'all later. Don't do things you shouldn't. I don't know. Alright, bye.